What if the reason your life hasn't changed is not because you lack talent, luck, or time, but because you keep announcing your goals instead of embodying them? Why do you seek validation before results? Why do you need noise, applause, and permission when the strongest transformations in history were built in silence? Tell me, are you truly disciplined or just motivated when someone is watching? Silence will reveal the truth. I am Heng, and today I will share with you a principle that separates the powerful from the performative. In 2026, the world will reward those who can endure quietly, not the loud, not the distracted, but the ones who master themselves when no one is looking. Here is my promise to you. If you apply this principle with patience and integrity, you will develop an inner strength so solid that external chaos will no longer control your direction. This is not about working harder. This is about working deeper. And once cultivated, this wisdom will carry you forward without needing permission. 1. Silence is not weakness, it is energy conserved. Silence is often misunderstood. Many believe it is the absence of strength, the lack of courage, or the inability to respond. But silence is none of these. Silence is restraint. Silence is control. Silence is the deliberate decision to hold your energy instead of leaking it into the world without purpose. When you remain silent, you are not retreating. You are gathering yourself. You are compressing force. Like water behind a dam, silence stores pressure until the moment arrives when release becomes inevitable and unstoppable. Every word you speak costs energy. Every explanation drains power. Every argument scatters focus. When you speak too much, you spend yourself cheaply. When you remain silent, you invest inwardly. Silence is the discipline of not reacting. It is the mastery of impulse. It is the ability to feel emotion rise and choose stillness instead of expression. This choice builds something rare inside you: authority over self. The world is loud. Opinions collide. Noise demands response. And most people live exhausted because they are constantly reacting, constantly proving, constantly explaining who they are and what they want. Silence refuses this transaction. Silence does not bargain with chaos. It does not chase approval. It watches. It listens. It waits. In that waiting, clarity sharpens. Silence gives you space to hear your own mind. When noise disappears, truth becomes audible. You begin to notice patterns in your thoughts. You recognize which desires are borrowed and which are yours. You see how often fear disguises itself as urgency. Silence exposes these things gently, without judgment, without distraction. Those who cannot sit in silence often fear what will surface there, because silence removes performance. There is no audience, no applause, only you and the reality of who you have become. This is why silence feels uncomfortable at first. It strips away identity built on reaction and replaces it with presence. In silence, discipline is forged. You learn to observe discomfort without escaping it. You learn to endure boredom without seeking stimulation. You learn to stay when the mind begs you to flee. This endurance strengthens will, and will, once strengthened, becomes direction. Silence conserves energy because it reduces unnecessary movement. The body relaxes, the breath deepens, the mind slows. With fewer words spoken, fewer promises made, fewer arguments entered, your energy remains intact. You stop spending yourself on things that do not matter. This conserved energy does not disappear. It accumulates. It becomes focus during work. It becomes patience under pressure. It becomes stability when others panic. People sense this without explanation. They feel it when you enter a room. A quiet presence that does not need to announce itself commands attention naturally. Silence also protects intention. Goals spoken too early are weakened by exposure. When others know your plans, their opinions, doubts, and expectations interfere. Silence shields your vision while it matures. Seeds grow best underground. Roots strengthen unseen. Silence gives growth the darkness it requires. To remain silent is not to be passive. It is to be strategic. It is choosing the long path over the immediate response. It is understanding that true strength does not rush to prove itself. It allows time to reveal it. When you practice silence daily, something shifts. You become less reactive, less defensive, more grounded. You begin to act instead of announce. And action, when supported by conserved energy, carries undeniable weight. This is why silence is power, not because it hides weakness, but because it preserves strength. And when strength is preserved long enough, it demands expression through action rather than words. And when words finally fall away, something else begins to speak. 2. The ego seeks recognition. Discipline seeks results. The ego is impatient. It wants to be seen immediately. It wants acknowledgement before effort is complete. It craves applause before mastery is earned. Discipline, however, does not negotiate with attention. Discipline does not perform. It works quietly, repeatedly, without asking if anyone is watching. The ego measures worth through external response, likes, praise, validation. It asks, do they see me? Discipline asks a different question, did I do the work today? One looks outward for confirmation, the other looks inward for truth. When the ego leads, effort becomes inconsistent. Motivation rises when attention is present and fades when it is gone. Progress becomes dependent on mood. Discipline rejects this cycle. Discipline shows up regardless of feeling. It trains when tired. It practices when bored. It continues when excitement disappears. Recognition is addictive. Once tasted, it demands repetition. The ego begins to work not for growth, but for response. This weakens intention. Actions become calculated for visibility rather than effectiveness. Discipline does not care how it looks, only whether it works. There is a quiet dignity in discipline. It does not announce its sacrifices. It does not complain about effort. It understands that results are delayed rewards. It accepts the gap between action and outcome. This patience separates builders from performers. Most people abandon discipline because it offers no immediate feedback. No applause follows a private workout. No praise follows a night of focused study. No recognition comes from saying no to distraction. The ego finds this unbearable. Discipline accepts it as necessary. When discipline replaces ego, priorities change. You stop asking how fast results will come. You start asking how strong the foundation is. You stop comparing progress. You focus on consistency. You understand that mastery is not dramatic. It is repetitive. It is quiet. It is often invisible. Discipline trains the mind to respect process. Each repetition becomes a vote. F. Or the person you are becoming. No one else needs to witness it. The transformation is internal before it is external. Recognition fades quickly. Results remain. Recognition excites for a moment. Results change your life. Discipline chooses the permanent over the temporary. It understands that applause cannot sustain you when hardship arrives. Only habits can. When ego is silent, learning accelerates. Mistakes are no longer threats to image. They become data. Feedback is received without defense. Growth becomes inevitable because pride no longer blocks correction. Discipline also humbles. It reveals how much effort is truly required. It replaces fantasy with reality. And in doing so, it removes entitlement. You earn confidence through work, not assumption. Those guided by discipline do not rush to speak about progress. They wait until results speak for them. This waiting builds pressure. And pressure, when released, creates impact. When discipline becomes your identity, external recognition loses control over your behavior. You become internally governed, stable, reliable, unshaken by praise or criticism. And once recognition no longer motivates you, something deeper begins to move you forward. 3. When you speak less, your actions become louder. Words are easy. Action is demanding. This is why many choose speech over execution. Talking creates the illusion of progress. Action creates reality. When you reduce words, you remove illusion. What remains is truth measured by behavior. Silence forces accountability. Without explanation, without promises, without declarations, only actions define you. This can feel uncomfortable because action cannot hide. It reveals discipline or its absence immediately. When you speak less, intention sharpens. You no longer waste energy describing what you will do. All energy moves toward doing it. Focus intensifies. Distraction loses power because there is no narrative to maintain, only work to complete. Actions carry weight because they require commitment. They consume time. They demand effort. They expose weakness. Words avoid these costs. This is why actions command respect naturally. They demonstrate rather than declare. People listen differently to those who speak rarely. Each word is measured. Each statement carries gravity. Silence creates contrast, and contrast amplifies presence. When actions become louder, trust grows. Others no longer rely on promises, they observe patterns. Reliability replaces persuasion. Influence becomes effortless because consistency is visible. Speaking less also reduces conflict. Many disagreements exist only because of excessive explanation. Action bypasses debate, results end arguments. As actions accumulate, identity changes. You no longer think of yourself as someone who wants to improve. You become someone who improves daily. This shift alters self-respect. Confidence becomes grounded, not inflated. Silence during effort also strengthens resilience. Without ecstasy, RNL reinforcement, motivation must come from within. This builds independence. You become less affected by opinion, more committed to purpose. When success arrives, it feels different. It is quieter, deeper, more stable. Because it was earned without noise, it does not require celebration to feel real. The less you speak, the more room there is for action to expand. And as action expands, it begins to shape the environment around you. Eventually, words become unnecessary because what you do has already spoken. 4. True power is built when comfort is removed. Comfort is seductive. It speaks softly. It tells you that tomorrow is always available, that effort can wait, that discipline can be delayed without consequence. Comfort wraps itself around routine and familiarity, convincing you that stability is safety. But comfort does not protect strength. It slowly dissolves it. True power does not emerge from ease. It is born in moments where resistance appears and you choose not to retreat. When comfort is removed, the mind is exposed, the body is tested, excuses surface, and in that exposure, truth is revealed. You discover who you are without cushions, without guarantees, without reassurance. Comfort dulls awareness. When everything feels easy, attention fades. The body moves lazily, the mind wanders. Discipline weakens because it is no longer required. But when comfort disappears, presence returns. Every breath matters. Every decision carries weight. Focus sharpens not to rally because survival demands it. Power grows through adaptation. When conditions are harsh, the system adjusts. Muscles strengthen under load. Willpower expands under pressure. Endurance increases through repeated challenge. Comfort interrupts this process. It keeps you untested. Untested strength remains theoretical. Discomfort teaches honesty. It removes the stories you tell yourself about who you are and replaces them with evidence. When tired, when bored, when challenged, behavior reveals reality. This honesty is painful, but it is necessary. Without it, growth remains fantasy. Those who seek comfort avoid this truth. They remain attached to identity rather than evolution. They prefer familiar limitations over unfamiliar potential. But power requires surrendering the version of yourself that depends on ease. When you deliberately remove comfort, you train resilience. Cold strengthens the body. Silence strengthens the mind. Effort strengthens character. These practices are not punishment. They are preparation. They condition you to remain steady when circumstances become unpredictable. The mind resists discomfort because it fears loss of control. But control is an illusion sustained by predictable conditions. Real control is adaptability, the ability to remain composed regardless of environment. This adaptability is forged only when comfort is absent. Discomfort also clarifies priorities. When energy is limited, you choose carefully. Distractions lose appeal. Minai, NG becomes obvious. You stop wasting effort on what does not serve growth. Power built through discomfort is quiet. It does not boast. It does not seek recognition. It manifests as calm under stress, as steadiness in chaos, as reliability when others falter. When comfort is removed consistently, confidence shifts. It is no longer based on favorable conditions. It becomes rooted in capability. You trust yourself because you have endured. And once you learn to stand without comfort, something else becomes visible. 5. Mastery begins where excuses end. Excuses are subtle. They rarely appear as lies. They present themselves as reasons, logical, convincing. They explain why effort was postponed, why discipline was interrupted, why consistency was broken. Excuses protect comfort. They preserve identity without demanding change. Mastery does not negotiate with excuses. It observes them and continues regardless. The moment excuses lose authority, progress accelerates. Responsibility replaces justification. Ownership replaces explanation. Every excuse shifts power outward. It blames time, circumstance, fatigue, environment. Mastery pulls power inward. It asks, what can be done now with what is available despite limitations? Excuses feel relieving in the moment. They reduce tension. They soothe discomfort. But relief is temporary. The cost appears later as stagnation, regret, and self-doubt. Mastery accepts discomfort now to avoid suffering later. When excuses end, standards are yes. You stop asking what is convenient. You ask what is necessary. This shift changes behavior immediately. Choices become deliberate. Actions align with intention. Ending excuses does not mean ignoring reality. It means responding to reality honestly. It means adjusting strategy without abandoning commitment. Mastery is flexible in method, rigid in purpose. The mind resists this rigidity because it removes escape routes. Once excuses are gone, accountability remains. There is no one else to blame. This pressure is uncomfortable, but it is also liberating. It returns control to you. Mastery grows through repetition without negotiation. Showing up becomes non-optional. Mood becomes irrelevant. Discipline becomes identity rather than effort. When excuses dissolve, self-respect increases. Each completed task reinforces trust in self. Confidence grows quietly, built on evidence rather than affirmation. Excuses create distance between intention and action. Mastery closes this gap. Thought becomes movement. Desire becomes practice. Vision becomes routine. Those who pursue mastery accept that progress is slow. They do not rush. They do not dramatize effort. They understand that consistency compounds invisibly before results appear. When excuses end, comparison ends. You stop measuring yourself against others and start measuring yourself against your own standards. This internal reference stabilizes motivation. Mastery is not perfection. It is commitment without excuse. Returning to practice repeatedly, even after failure, without justification. And when excuses finally fall silent, another force takes over. 6. Your habits shape you more than your intentions. Intentions are easy to admire. They feel noble. They suggest direction. But intentions without habit remain potential, not reality. Habit is intention made visible. Repeated, reinforced, embodied. The body does not respond to plans. It responds to patterns. The mind follows repetition. What you do daily becomes who you are eventually. This transformation is gradual, almost invisible, but relentless. Habits operate quietly. They do not announce themselves. They shape posture, attention, energy, and behavior without discussion. This is why they are powerful. They bypass motivation and rely on structure. Intentions fluctuate with emotion. Habits persist through neutrality. On days when motivation disappears, habit remains. This reliability makes habit the true architect of character. Each habit casts a vote for the person you are becoming. No single action defines you. The accumulation does. Small choices repeated over time create identity. Habits also reveal priorities honestly. Not what you say matters, but what you repeat. Time spent reflects value more accurately than words. When habits align with intention, progress feels natural. When they conflict, friction appears. This friction often leads to frustration, because intention alone cannot override habit. Changing habits requires awareness before effort. You must observe patterns without judgment, identify triggers, understand rewards, replace rather than resist. Habits formed under discipline eventually feel effortless. What once required willpower becomes automatic. This frees mental energy for higher focus. Strong habits reduce decision fatigue. They create rhythm. Structure supports creativity rather than limiting it. Freedom increases when essentials are automated. Habits also protect during adversity. When stress disrupts intention, habit maintains direction. This stability prevents regression. Building habits requires patience. Results are delayed, feedback is subtle, but persistence transforms routine into mastery. When habits shape you consciously, life becomes aligned. Actions reinforce values. Effort feels meaningful. And as habits take root, intention no longer needs to speak, because behavior has already decided. 7. Discomfort is the doorway to self-respect. Discomfort arrives uninvited. It interrupts routine. It challenges identity. It exposes weakness. Most people treat it as an enemy, something to be avoided, numbed, or escaped. But discomfort is not a threat. It is an invitation. An invitation to meet yourself without decoration, without comfort, without illusion. Self-respect is not something you think into existence. It is not built through affirmation or praise. It is earned through behavior, especially when behavior costs something. Discomfort is the price. Every time you choose what is difficult over what is easy, you deposit trust into yourself. Slowly, quietly, self-respect grows. Discomfort tests sincerity. When motivation fades, when conditions are imperfect, when effort feels heavy, the question becomes simple: will you continue? If you do, you prove something to yourself that no external validation can replace. You prove reliability, and reliability is the foundation of self-respect. Avoiding discomfort may protect comfort, but it erodes dignity. Each time you retreat from effort, a subtle fracture forms in your self-image. You may not notice it immediately, but it accumulates. Over time, this distance between who you say you are and what you do becomes unbearable. Discomfort closes this distance. It aligns word and action. When you endure difficulty voluntarily, integrity strengthens. You no longer need to convince yourself of your worth. You have evidence. Discomfort also clarifies limits. It shows where discipline ends and excuses begin. This clarity is painful, but it is honest. And honesty is essential for growth. Without knowing where you fail, you cannot improve. Self-respect is quiet. It does not announce itself. It manifests as posture, as eye contact, as calm under pressure. Others sense it instinctively. It comes from knowing you did not betray yourself when it mattered. Discomfort builds tolerance. What once felt unbearable becomes manageable. What once required effort becomes routine. This expansion changes perception. Challenges appear smaller. Confidence grows not from arrogance, but from experience. There is also humility in discomfort. It reminds you that growth requires effort, that strength is built, not granted. This humility keeps ego in check and focus intact. When discomfort becomes familiar, fear loses power. You realize that difficulty is temporary, but regret is lasting. This realization shifts decision-making. You choose effort more often, not because it is pleasant, but because it is honest. And as self-respect solidifies, you begin to seek discomfort intentionally, because you know what waits on the other side. 8. Focus is a form of self-discipline. Focus is not intensity. It is direction sustained over time. It is the ability to remain with one task, one thought, one intention, without fragmentation. In a world designed to divide attention, focus has become rare, and rarity gives it power. Discipline is often misunderstood as force, but force exhausts, focus conserves. When attention is unified, effort becomes efficient. Energy stops leaking into distraction. Progress accelerates naturally. Lack of focus is not weakness of intellect, it is weakness of discipline. The mind wanders because it has not been trained to stay. Training focus begins with noticing distraction without judgment and returning attention gently, repeatedly. Each return strengthens control. Like muscle, focus grows through use. At first, it trembles, it resists, it seeks escape. But it patience, it stabilizes. And when focus stabilizes, clarity emerges. Focused effort creates depth. Superficial engagement produces shallow results. Depth requires time, silence, and sustained attention. Few are willing to offer this. Those who do separate themselves quickly. Focus also reduces anxiety. When attention is scattered, the mind feels overwhelmed. When focused, the present moment becomes manageable. One task, one breath, one action. Calm follows naturally. Self-discipline through focus means choosing what deserves attention and refusing what does not. This refusal is difficult because distraction is pleasurable. It promises relief without effort, but pleasure without purpose weakens will. Focused individuals are not faster. They are steadier. They do not rush. They do not multitask. They complete before moving on. This completion builds momentum. Focus transforms work into practice. Each repetition becomes refinement. Skill develops quietly. Mastery approaches unnoticed. When focus deepens, time perception changes. Hours compress, effort flows. This state is not accidental. It is cultivated through disciplined attention. Focus also protects values. When attention is controlled, influence is limited. You decide what enters your mind. This sovereignty preserves direction. In focus, noise fades. Comparison disappears. Only the task remains. This simplicity is powerful. And when focus becomes habit, something else becomes possible. 9. Do not explain your journey, walk it. Explanation seeks understanding. Walking seeks progress. The two are rarely aligned. Explaining your journey invites opinion. Walking it creates reality. When you explain, you expose intention prematurely. Others respond with doubt, advice, or comparison. This external input interferes with internal clarity. Direction becomes diluted. Walking in silence preserves momentum. No energy is spent defending choices. No attention is diverted to persuasion. All effort moves forward. Explanation also creates obligation. Once spoken, you feel pressure to perform for others. This pressure distorts purpose. You begin to act for approval rather than alignment. Walking removes this weight. Each step is private. Failure is instructional, not embarrassing. Adjustment is free. Those who walk quietly develop resilience. Without applause, motivation must be intrinsic. This strengthens commitment. You continue because it matters, not because it is noticed. Results speak without effort. They do not argue. They do not justify. They appear. And appearance ends conversation. Walking also allows evolution. You are not trapped by earlier declarations. You adapt without explanation. Growth remains fluid. When you stop explaining, listening increases. Observation sharpens. You learn from experience rather than opinion. The journey is not linear. Explaining demands coherence. Walking accepts uncertainty. This acceptance reduces frustration. Those who walk are patient. They understand timing. They allow progress to unfold. Silence protects purpose. Movement fulfills it. And when the path becomes visible, words are unnecessary, because the journey has already been made. 10. Consistency beats intensity every time. Intensity is dramatic. It arrives like a storm, loud, powerful, and brief. It convinces you that transformation must feel extreme, exhausting, and urgent. Intensity promises fast results and immediate change, but it rarely stays long enough to deliver what it promises. When it leaves, it often takes momentum with it, leaving exhaustion in its place. Consistency is quieter. It does not rush. It does not impress. It does not announce itself. It simply returns again and again, regardless of mood, weather, recognition, or circumstance. Consistency does not rely on emotion. It relies on decision. And decision, once made daily, becomes direction. Most people chase intensity because it feels productive. Long hours, sudden bursts of motivation, extreme effort, compressed into short periods of time. Intensity feels heroic. It feeds the ego. But intensity depends on emotion, and emotion is unstable. When emotion fades, intensity collapses. Consistency remains because it is not fueled by feeling. It is fueled by structure. Consistency is the discipline of showing up when nothing feels special, especially then. It is repetition without excitement, practice without applause, effort without immediate reward. This is why it works. It removes dependence on motivation and replaces it with reliability. The body adapts to what is repeated, not to what is extreme. A single intense effort shocks the system. Repeated moderate effort reshapes it. Muscles strengthen gradually. Tendons adapt safely. Skills refine slowly. Endurance grows steadily. The same law applies to the mind. Repeated focus trains attention. Repeated restraint trains discipline. Repeated patience trains resilience. Consistency builds trust with yourself. Each time you keep a small promise, credibility increases. You begin to believe in your own reliability. This belief changes behavior. You hesitate less. You act more decisively. Confidence becomes grounded, not inflated. It is no longer borrowed from emotion but earned through action. Intensity often leads to burnout because it demands too much, too quickly. It ignores recovery. Consistency respects rhythm, work and rest, effort and pause, discipline and recovery. This balance allows progress to continue indefinitely without collapse. Consistency compounds quietly. Progress may be invisible at first. Days feel ordinary, weeks feel repetitive, months feel slow. But beneath the surface, change accumulates. Then, suddenly, results appear disproportionate to effort. This is the power of compounding discipline. Those who remain consistent do not seek shortcuts. They trust process. They understand that mastery is built through patience. This patience protects them from distraction. They are less tempted by novelty because they are invested in depth. Consistency simplifies life. Decisions become fewer. Routine removes negotiation. You do not ask whether to act. You act because it is time. This simplicity frees mental energy for refinement rather than resistance. Intensity seeks quick identity change. Consistency reshapes identity gradually. One is fragile, the other's permanent. One depends on feeling, the other survives it. When consistency becomes non-negotiable, progress becomes inevitable. And once inevitability is established, attention naturally turns inward. 11. Control the mind and the body will follow. The body is obedient. It responds to instruction, habit, and repetition. The mind is the commander. When the commander is unstable, the body becomes inconsistent. When the commander is disciplined, the body aligns without resistance. Most people struggle not because the body is incapable, but because the mind is undirected. Thoughts wander, doubts interrupt, impulses dominate. The body follows these signals faithfully. Fatigue appears early, resistance increases, effort feels heavy before it should. Control of the mind does not mean suppression. It means observation, awareness of thought without immediate reaction. This space between stimulus and response is where discipline lives. In this space, choice becomes possible. When the mind is trained to remain present, discomfort becomes manageable. Pain is perceived accurately rather than exaggerated. Effort becomes precise rather than chaotic. The body responds with efficiency instead of panic. The breath is the bridge between mind and body. Through breath, the mind influences the nervous system directly. Slow breathing calms. Controlled breathing focuses. Attentive breathing grounds awareness. Through this practice, control is learned gradually. A disciplined mind gives clear commands. Begin, continue, adjust, stop, rest. These commands, when consistent, create trust. The body learns what to expect. Performance stabilizes, injury decreases, recovery improves. Without mental control, the body negotiates. It seeks comfort. It avoids strain. It delays effort. With mental clarity, negotiation ends. Action begins. Training the mind requires patience. Thoughts do not quiet immediately. They resist, they distract. Each return to focus strengthens control. This repetition mirrors physical training. Small efforts accumulate into authority over attention. When the mind is steady, posture improves. Movement becomes economical. Energy is conserved. Tension releases. The body reflects mental order without conscious effort. Control of mind also governs emotion. Fear, anger, excitement lose dominance. They are felt but not obeyed. This emotional regulation prevents impulsive action and protects consistency. As mental control deepens, discipline becomes calm rather than forceful. Effort feels deliberate. The body follows willingly instead of resisting. And when the body begins to obey without conflict, attention naturally narrows. 12. Results come faster when attention is undivided. Divided attention creates divided results. Energy scattered across tasks produces shallow progress. Undivided attention concentrates force. Concentrated force accelerates change. Attention is currency. Where it goes, growth follows. When attention is fragmented, progress slows. When attention is unified, learning deepens, skill sharpens, and outcomes arrive sooner. Undivided attention removes friction. The mind stops switching between tasks. Cognitive energy is preserved. Errors decrease, quality improves. Time feels expansive because presence is complete. Results appear faster not because time changes, but because waste disappears. Every moment serves purpose. Every action builds toward outcome. Undivided attention requires choice. Choosing one thing means refusing others. This refusal is difficult because distraction is pleasurable. It promises relief without effort, but pleasure without purpose weakens direction. When attention is focused, effort enters flow. Action becomes smooth. Resistance fades. The task absorbs awareness completely. This state cannot be forced. It is cultivated through discipline, removing distractions, setting boundaries, respecting time, honoring silence. Undivided attention also increases quality. Work becomes refined, details emerge, errors reveal themselves early, mastery advances quietly. As attention stabilizes, confidence grows. You trust your ability to remain present. This trust encourages ambition rooted in capability rather than fantasy. Undivided attention turns consistency into momentum, momentum into mastery, mastery into quiet authority, and quiet authority never needs to explain itself. 13. Validation weakens commitment, solitude strengthens it. Validation feels warm, it reassures, it tells you that you are seen, understood, and approved. But this warmth is deceptive. It conditions effort on response. It slowly teaches the mind to ask for permission before action and applause before completion. What begins as encouragement becomes dependence. Commitment rooted in validation is fragile. When approval disappears, effort fades. When praise slows, discipline weakens. Motivation becomes conditional. Solitude removes these conditions. In solitude, there is no audience to impress, no reaction to measure progress against. There is only the work and your relationship with it. Solitude strengthens commitment because it strips effort down to its essence. You act because you choose to, not because someone is watching. This choice deepens integrity. You are no longer performing a version of discipline. You are practicing it. In solitude, excuses lose credibility. There is no one to convince, no one to explain yourself to. This honesty is uncomfortable, but it is powerful. It forces alignment between intention and behavior. Validation rewards outcome. Solitude rewards process. Outcome is unpredictable. Process is controllable. Commitment built on process survives failure, delay, and uncertainty. It does not require reassurance. Solitude also clarifies motivation. Without external feedback, you learn what truly matters. You discover which goals persist without recognition and which fade. This clarity prevents wasted effort. Those who train in solitude develop patience. They understand that growth is not immediate. They trust unseen progress. This trust reduces anxiety and comparison. Solitude builds self-trust. Each session completed without acknowledgement strengthens confidence. You know you can continue without encouragement. This independence is rare. Validation creates noise. Solitude creates silence. In silence, focus sharpens. Attention deepens. Work improves. When commitment is strengthened in solitude, it becomes unshakable. And once commitment no longer depends on approval, consistency begins to feel natural. 14. Small daily actions build unshakable confidence. Confidence is often mistaken for boldness, loudness, certainty expressed without hesitation. But this type of confidence collapses under pressure because it is not supported by evidence. True confidence is quiet. It is built through repetition, not declaration. Small daily actions seem insignificant. They do not impress. They do not transform overnight. This is why most people ignore them. But small actions repeated consistently accumulate proof. Proof builds trust. Trust builds confidence. Each completed action is a promise kept. Each promise kept strengthens credibility with yourself. Over time, this credibility becomes unshakable. You do not question whether you will act. You already know. Small actions reduce resistance. They are manageable. They bypass overwhelm. This makes consistency possible. Consistency makes progress inevitable. Confidence built this way is stable. It does not spike with success or collapse with failure. It is grounded in habit. Even on difficult days, confidence remains because behavior remains. Small actions also create momentum. One completed task leads to another. Movement replaces stagnation. Energy follows action. This confidence does not seek attention. It does not announce itself. Others sense it through calmness, through reliability, through presence. Daily action also trains patience. Results arrive slowly. This teaches endurance. Endurance strengthens confidence further. As confidence grows, ambition becomes realistic. You set goals based on capability, not fantasy. This alignment prevents discouragement. Unshakable confidence does not need reassurance. And when confidence is rooted in action, discipline becomes a choice, not a struggle. 15. Discipline is choosing growth over mood. Mood is unstable. It changes with sleep, weather, interaction, and thought. Growth is deliberate. It requires consistency regardless of internal state. Discipline bridges this gap. When mood dictates action, progress becomes unpredictable. Some days are productive, others are wasted. This inconsistency erodes trust in self. Discipline restores it. Choosing growth over mood means acting even when enthusiasm is absent, especially then. It means understanding that mood is temporary, but direction is lasting. Discipline does not fight mood. It acknowledges it and proceeds anyway. This separation reduces internal conflict. You no longer wait to feel ready. You act because it is time. Growth through discipline is quiet. It accumulates unnoticed. Over time, mood becomes less influential. Action becomes automatic. This choice requires clarity of values. When values are clear, mood loses authority. Purpose guides behavior. Discipline also stabilizes emotion. When routine is consistent, the nervous system relaxes. Predictability reduces anxiety. Calm increases. Choosing growth over mood builds resilience. You learn that discomfort is survivable, that lack of motivation is temporary, that effort produces progress regardless of feeling. As discipline strengthens, identity shifts. You no longer see yourself as someone who tries. You see yourself as someone who does. And once this identity is established, effort becomes inevitable because growth has already been chosen. 16. Stillness sharpens awareness. Stillness is not the absence of movement. It is the presence of attention. When the body becomes quiet, when the breath softens, when unnecessary motion fades, awareness steps forward. In stillness, nothing is demanded, yet ease. Writhing is revealed. This is why stillness is uncomfortable for many. It removes distraction. It removes escape. It removes noise that once concealed inner truth. Awareness does not arrive through effort alone. It emerges when effort relaxes. Stillness creates the conditions for this emergence. When the mind is no longer chasing stimulation, it begins to notice. Sensation becomes vivid, thought becomes observable, emotion becomes transparent. You begin to see without immediately reacting. Modern life trains restlessness. Constant input fragments attention. The mind becomes accustomed to movement, to novelty, to interruption. Stillness reverses this conditioning. It retrains perception. At first, the mind resists. It seeks something to do, something to consume, something to escape into. Remaining still during this resistance is the practice. Stillness sharpens awareness because it slows perception. When speed decreases, detail increases. You begin to notice subtle changes in breath, in posture, in mood. These subtleties guide behavior more accurately than impulse. Awareness becomes refined, not forceful. In stillness, the body speaks quietly. Tension reveals itself. Fatigue announces its presence. alignment adjusts naturally. This communication is often ignored in movement. Stillness restores dialogue between body and mind. Awareness born from stillness is non-judgmental. It observes without labeling. This observation reduces internal conflict. Thoughts arise and pass without struggle. Emotions appear without resistance. This acceptance does not weaken discipline. It strengthens it by removing friction. Stillness also exposes habit. Patterns become visible when movement stops. Reactions repeat themselves. Thoughts loop predictably. This visibility creates choice. Once seen, a pattern can be interrupted. Sharpened awareness improves decision-making. When perception is clear, choices align with reality rather than assumption. You respond instead of react. Timing improves. Effort becomes precise. Stillness trains patience. Nothing is rushed. Nothing is forced. This patience transfers into action. Movements become economical. Words become intentional. Energy is conserved. Awareness cultivated in stillness extends beyond practice. It accompanies you into work, into conversation, into challenge. You notice before you act. You sense before you respond. This awareness protects discipline from impulse. Stillness also reveals impermanence. Thoughts change, emotions shift, discomfort passes. This understanding reduces fear. You realize that difficulty is temporary. Awareness remains. In a still mind, focus stabilizes. Attention no longer jumps, it rests. From this rest, strength emerges quietly. Those who cultivate stillness become grounded. They are not easily shaken. They move with intention. They speak with clarity. Their presence carries weight. Stillness does not withdraw you from life. It prepares you for it. It sharpens the instrument throw. Which experience is perceived. And as awareness sharpens, action becomes effortless. Because the next movement will no longer be rushed but exact. 17. Those who endure silently outlast those who seek praise. Endurance is quiet. It does not announce itself. It does not demand recognition. It does not look impressive while it is happening. Endurance simply continues, and because it continues, it survives where others fade. Those who seek praise require fuel from outside themselves. Applause becomes energy. Recognition becomes motivation. When it is present, they move. When it is absent, they slow. When it disappears, they stop. This dependence creates fragility. Their effort is only as strong as the response they receive. Silent endurance is different. It is self-sustaining. It draws strength from commitment rather than reaction. The one who endures silently does not ask whether the effort is noticed. They ask whether it is necessary. This single difference determines longevity. Praise is immediate. Endurance is patient. Praise is loud. Endurance is steady. Praise fades quickly. Endurance accumulates quietly. Over time, the one who endures silently travels farther, not because they are faster, but because they never stop. Silence protects endurance. Without an audience, there is no pressure to perform. Without performance, there is no burnout from expectation. Effort becomes honest. Pace becomes natural. Progress becomes sustainable. Those who seek praise often overextend. They push too hard, too fast to be seen. They exhaust themselves trying to maintain an image. When fatigue arrives, they have no reserve. Endurance, practiced silently, preserves energy. It respects rhythm. It allows rest without guilt and effort without drama. Endurance is not stubbornness. It is adaptability over time. It bends without breaking. It asks without abandoning direction. Silence allows this flexibility. There is no narrative to protect, no identity to defend. Only movement forward matters. In silence, endurance deepens because comparison disappears. There is no scoreboard, no ranking, no urgency created by others' progress. You move according to your own capacity. This prevents discouragement and arrogance alike. Those who endure silently develop a strong relationship with discomfort. They do not seek it, but they do not fear it. Discomfort becomes familiar. It no longer signals danger, it signals effort. This familiarity reduces hesitation. Action becomes smoother. Praise interrupts endurance by shifting focus outward. Instead of listening to the body, the mind listens for reaction. Instead of responding to reality, behavior responds to expectation. Silence removes this interference. Silent endurance also builds humility. Without applause, there is no illusion of completion. You know there is always more to refine, more to learn, more to practice. This humility keeps progress alive. Over time, silent endurance produces visible results. Strength, GH, becomes obvious. Skill becomes undeniable. Presence becomes grounded. When recognition finally arrives, it feels irrelevant. You have already become what you set out to be. Those who endure silently do not resent those who seek praise. They understand that different paths produce different outcomes. They simply continue walking. Endurance outlasts excitement. It outlasts motivation. It outlasts trends. It outlasts attention. This is why it wins. Silence allows endurance to mature without interference. Like roots growing underground, strength expands unseen. When the moment arrives, it holds firm. And when others fall away, wondering where their motivation went, the one who endured silently is still there, moving forward. Because the work was never about being seen. It was about remaining 18. When the work is done properly, words become unnecessary. There comes a moment in the journey where explanation loses its purpose, not because nothing remains to be said, but because everything essential has already been expressed through action. When work is done properly, it carries its own meaning. It stands without commentary. It requires no defense, no promotion, no narrative. It simply exists, complete and sufficient. In the beginning, words feel important. They help define intention. They give structure to desire. They create clarity when direction is uncertain. But as practice deepens, words begin to fall away. They become less useful, less necessary. What once needed explanation now needs only demonstration. Proper work is quiet. It does not seek witnesses. It does not rush to be understood. It unfolds at its own pace, guided by discipline rather than urgency. This quietness is not emptiness. It is fullness contained. It is effort refined to such precision that excess disappears. Words often emerge from insecurity. The need to explain comes from the need to be seen accurately, to be understood, to be validated. When work is done properly, this need dissolves. The result speaks clearly. Misunderstanding becomes irrelevant. Truth is embodied, not argued. Proper work aligns intention, effort, and outcome. There is no contradiction between what is desired and what is done. This alignment creates coherence. Coherence creates confidence. Confidence removes the impulse to justify. When work is incomplete, words attempt to compensate. They promise what action has not yet delivered. They explain delays. They soften failure. But when work is complete, words step aside. There is nothing left to promise. This silence is not withdrawal. It is completion. It is the natural stillness that follows precision. A craftsman setting down tools after shaping a piece perfectly. There is no need to announce completion. The work itself confirms it. Proper work also carries humility. It does not demand attention. It does not compare itself to others. It does not ask to be measured. It knows its value because it was built with care. This humility makes it durable. It does not depend on reaction. When words become unnecessary, listening deepens. You hear more, you observe more, you respond with accuracy rather than assumption. This attentiveness refines future work further. The absence of words also protects integrity. There is no temptation to exaggerate or diminish. What exists is enough. This sufficiency stabilizes the mind. Restlessness fades. Proper work creates inner quiet. The constant commentary of self-evaluation softens. You no longer ask whether you are doing enough. You know because you are present with the work as it unfolds. This presence sharpens perception. You notice when effort becomes sloppy. You adjust before error accumulates. Quality remains high because attention remains steady. When words fall away, time changes. You are no longer pulled between past explanation and future promise. You are here, fully engaged. This engagement brings satisfaction independent of outcome. Proper work also teaches restraint, knowing when to stop, knowing when enough is enough. This restraint preserves energy. It prevents overextension. Those who reach this stage do not announce it. They simply continue. Their movements are economical, their decisions are clear, their presence is calm. Others may still ask questions. They may still seek explanation. But answers are brief, not dismissive, simply complete. There is nothing more to add. When words are necessary, influence increases. People trust what they can see. What is demonstrated consistently requires no persuasion. This is not silence of avoidance. It is silence of clarity. Nothing is hidden. Nothing is withheld. Everything essential is already visible. Proper work also creates continuity. Each action builds on the last seamlessly. There is no need to pause and redefine. Direction remains intact. This continuity builds mastery. Mastery simplifies. Complexity dissolves. What once required thought becomes instinct. In this state, effort feels natural. There is no struggle to begin, no resistance to continue, no anxiety about completion. Work flows. Words return only when needed, when teaching, when guiding, when clarifying for those beginning. But even then, words are minimal, precise, measured, because excessive language distracts from practice, and practice is where truth resides. When the work is done properly, life becomes quieter, not empty, focused. You move without hesitation, speak without excess, act without delay. And when asked how it was achieved, there is little to say, because the path was walked, and the walking itself was the answer.